Hey guys, Miss Warren here. So since our watercolor practice that we set up in our last video is divided into warm and cool, we need to point out our warm and cool colors. For beginner artists in watercolor, I recommend using analogous colors, which are colors that are next to each other. So we have our cool analogous colors, 3 in a row. We have violet, we have blue, and we have green. We're just using the secondary and primary colors. Our warm colors are going to be yellow, orange, and red. So when using watercolor, the first thing we want to do is activate the color. It's called watercolor. So when you paint, like 80% of your paint is going to be made out of water. So I'm going to put 3 or 4 drops of water in each of the colors I plan on using. Which today I think I'm going to use all the primary and secondary colors. So you want to put a few drops of water in there. Now, if your paint looks thick, if it's thicker than water and not just colored with the water, you're using too much paint and it will dry sticky. So you need to make sure you have enough water in your brush and on the paper. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is the wet into wet with warm colors. That's this first section here. So I'm going to get a lot of water in my brush and I'm going to pick a warm color. I think in this case, I'm going to pick the lightest color, yellow. Now before you start, you need 2 cups of water, 1 cup of clean water to kind of dip in and put more water in your stuff, another cup that you'll use to wash out your dirty brush, and a paper towel. You also need something under you so you don't paint the table. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to do a smooth layer of yellow all across. I'm gonna grab some more water so that keeps flowing. Grab a little more yellow. I'm filling this area. I like to go around the edges first and then fill in the center when I'm doing a larger area with watercolor. So carefully down the edge. And then I'm gonna pull that color. Now this one you have to do quickly before the first color dries. And you wanna kind of put a lot of water on this one. So now before that first color dries, I'm gonna wash out my brush really good. Make sure there's no yellow left in it at all. Wipe it off on the paper towel, rinse it off. Then I'm gonna grab some warm colors like red, and I'm gonna drop it into the yellow and watch it spread. This technique is called wet into wet. You could just put plain water on the paper and the paint would spread in a similar fashion. Now, if you want to use more warm colors, I'm gonna wash out my brush really, really well before I go back to the tray. You must wash it out super well because I don't wanna contaminate the colors in the tray. Then I'm gonna grab some orange because that's my other warm color. I'm gonna add a few dots of orange and just kind of watch it spread and do its thing. Okay, so that's wet into wet. And now I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm not gonna mix it around. I'm gonna just let the watercolor do what it's gonna do. So now I'm gonna wash out my brush really, really good. And I'm gonna look for where I labeled the number 2. So this one is a 2-color fade with warm colors. So this means I'm gonna slowly fade out, make a gradient in one color, then I'm gonna come back with the other color and slowly make a gradient up. So I think I'm gonna start with red, and I'm gonna get a lot of color in my brush for this first stroke. I'm gonna start from the center corner here. Here I'm gonna get a little more color because I want it to be darker near the edges. There we go. And I'm gonna move that color down. I want it to start to fade out, so I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the color. Now, if I want that color to get lighter, I'm gonna go into my clean water cup and I'm gonna grab some more water and I'm gonna mix it, and the color is gonna get lighter the more water that I add. soak up a little bit of that. See how it got lighter because I added a little more water? Okay, I think I'm gonna do one more stroke, and then about here is where I'm gonna start switching colors. So if your color starts to puddle, you can see little puddles there, you can squeeze out your brush into your cup, and then you can pick up some of the color. Okay, now I'm gonna start in with my other color. I think I'm gonna do yellow. Make sure my brush is super duper clean, really wash it out in that cup of water. And then I'm gonna pick up a lot of yellow for this side here. Okay, now I'm gonna start adding water so it lightens up. Carefully near the edges there. Okay, I think I want these colors to mix a little bit. See where I'm overlapping? I think I'm gonna get a little more red in here, just a little bit. I'm gonna really water down that red so it will mix with the yellow. Because I want it to fade, so I kind of want to get an orange shade in the middle here. Okay, so there we have one color slowly fading into the other. When you switch colors, you need to make sure your brush is super clean. Okay, so there we have two color fade. Okay, I'm gonna wash out my brush really, really well, and I'm gonna look for the third one. Okay, this one is Salt Effects, this bottom one here. It's hard to see, scooch up there. Salt Effects with cool colors. So really I can paint it any way that I want with cool colors, and because I just use warm colors, I need to make sure my brush is super clean because I don't want to get any orange in my blue because then it will turn it brown, and I don't want to get any yellow in my purple because then that will turn it gray. So I don't want to mix my warms and cools for this particular project. So I think I'm going to grab some green and I put it down, kind of go around the edges first. And you have to do this one fairly quickly too. I'm gonna wash out my brush really good, and I think I'm gonna drop a little bit of blue in there, just to kind of get some of that wet into wet. Now, before it dries, I'm gonna take salt, and I have a grinder, and I'm gonna do just a little bit of salt in there. After I put the salt down, I can't scrub it. I can't paint on it anymore. I have to leave it alone, or else that specky texture that I just made will go away. So after this point, stop and leave it alone. Okay, so I'm gonna do one more example for y'all, and then I'll do the next video. Okay, so our next one is for one color fade. So here, I'll just go ahead and scooch it up here. So we're gonna pick one color. I think I'm gonna go with purple this time. Make sure my brush is super duper clean because I don't wanna get any green in my purple. And I'm gonna grab a lot of paint from here, really stir it up in there. Okay. Now I'm gonna start at this edge and I'm gonna do my dark color. We want it nice and dark. And we're gonna pull that paint further down the page. Now the idea is once we start to run out of paint, to make a color lighter in watercolor, we're gonna add water. Make sure you're adding clean water, and it's gonna start to get lighter. sure I got that in the edge. I'm gonna make sure I'm picking this paint up. Then I'm gonna add more water when I start to run out of paint. Make sure you're adding clean water, otherwise your colors will get muddy. Okay, I think I got a little bit too much of a difference right here, so I'm gonna get a tiny bit more purple. Since there's just purple and water in my brush, I can go right into here. Make sure I go over one more time. So you don't wanna scrub back and forth. Do you notice that I barely ever go over the same spot twice? Because if you scrub back and forth, your paper will start to ball up and peel. So you wanna touch it very lightly. Okay, go ahead and give these a try. I'll come back in my next video and I'll talk about some brush techniques as I'm working in these.